News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. The Dignity Index is running as an 8-week pilot program in Utah before expanding nationally. Its aim is try to improve rhetoric, especially when it comes to candidates. Returning to give a post-election update on KVNU's For the People program last week, former Logan Municipal Council member Tammy Pfeiffer said it was kind of mixed.
Especially here in the state, we're really glad to have this over, the election over. And we've had a lot of outside money come into the state and pay for millions and millions of dollars worth of ads that I really feel aren't representative of the type of dialogue that we have in Utah. I think it pushed a lot of issues over the edge when it comes to contempt.
She said a couple of reports came out last week that indicated that 9 out of 10 Americans polled are concerned about the increased risk of violence because of political speech and the contempt that's growing in our culture.
And so people are tuned into that and worried about that. Now, as far as the speeches, in Utah last night or nationally, we've started gathering what we can find from the Utah candidates, either online or, televised speeches or things that they put on their social media. We have not started to score those yet.
But Pfeiffer said what she thinks will be revealed is that people feel that campaign speeches have to be contemptuous, but she disagrees. And Project Unite is trying to help people realize there can be dignified, passionate debates where people do disagree but do not disparage their opponent. KVNU News Time is 4:07. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, low 10 to 15. Sunny, lower 30s on Tuesday. Sunny, mid-30s on Wednesday. And, we've been in the mid-30s today. 35. Right now it's 34 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. They will hang your Christmas lights for you. They will do it quickly and affordably. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. A 21-year-old canyoneering guide has died after an incident near Arches National Park. Grand County deputies said the woman, identified as Emmeline Thayer Herbstritt of Salt Lake City, was located at Morning Glory Arch at about 1:45 Saturday afternoon. Grand County law enforcement, search and rescue, National Park Service rangers, and BLM rangers responded to the location of Herbstritt, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. And police have identified the 4 University of Idaho students who were found dead in a home near the Moscow, Idaho campus on Sunday. Moscow Police Department said today that the 4 victims are Ethan Chapin from Conway, Washington, Madison Mogan from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Xana Kernodle from Avondale, Arizona, and Kaylee Goncalves from Rathdrum, Idaho. Authorities did not release additional details about the deaths, but said there was not an ongoing threat to the community. Police said no one is in custody and asked that anyone with information call the department. The university canceled school today and said counselors would be available. And emergency crews are on the scene of a substantial ruptured gas line at 1400 North, 800 East. Traffic is being detoured in that area while utility crews make repairs. So again, that's in the area of 1400 North and 800 East. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Dave Ramsey from 6 till 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
If you haven't got your trees trimmed yet, this is it. Winter is here. Not only does it prevent damage from heavy snow, but it promotes healthier trees in the spring. So call Hull Tree Care now to get your big overgrown trees trimmed. 760-6587. However, because most of us tend to procrastinate, Bobby and his team at Hull Tree Care are willing to trim trees all winter long, weather permitting. So write this number down in case you hear a big boom in the night. 760-6587. Hull Tree Care. That's Hull Tree Care.
You're in the market to buy a home and dreaming of a new home you can fill with new memories. But homes just aren't in your budget. Or are they? Visionary Homes wants you to know you don't have to buy a used home. Buy new. Buy now with Visionary Homes. As a trusted award-winning Utah home builder, Visionary Homes understands that your home is the center of your life, bringing friends and family together, creating memories you'll cherish forever. Buy new. Buy now. VisionaryHomes.com.
Visionary Homes.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, hour one of today's show, Monday, November 14th. It is a beautiful, if chilly, at 34 degrees right now here at the Radio Ranch, Monday afternoon. And we have a lot to get to on the show today. Later on, we'll be joined by Gary Saxton of Logan's Downtown Alliance and special guests joining him for his time on the show today from the Box Elder County area. Both Brigham City and Tremont City are exploring their own version of Logan's Downtown Alliance, and Saxton has helped advise a bit on how to go about this. The purpose of the Downtown Alliance, of course, is to give businesses a bit of a grouping, a voice, if you will, sometimes even lobbying with their cities and counties for various policies to promote the downtown. Brigham City and Tremont have both decided that it's time for them to shine a spotlight on their own downtowns. We'll talk with Saxton and others in hour two of today's show about what the future might look like in downtown cities, in downtowns of cities in Box Elder County. That's coming up later on in the show. Also, want to throw this out for everyone. When it comes to Utah races, there are still some questions out there and audits taking place in some places today and tomorrow. The short version of this from some of the questions we've gotten from listeners, there are not enough outstanding votes in even the closer races to change the outcome of much here in Cache Valley. So a few listeners that emailed in said, some of these races are within a few hundred votes, a few thousand votes here and there. Could things flip from how they were called on election night or the day after? The short version, no. It's possible. And of course, the final canvass doesn't happen for another week. So something could change in a race or two. But looking at races here in Cache Valley, very unlikely. If you'd like, you can listen to our interview with Cache County Clerk Jess Bradfield on Friday's show. That is available in our podcast. So, again, a lot to get to here on the show, but going to start things off here today with headlines from around the state and the world with a calm, relaxing sound of smooth jazz. It's pretty tense around election time, and people losing it sometimes, especially on social media. So this is our attempt to bring you some headlines and lower the blood pressure at the same time. One of my favorite stories over the weekend, you can read at CashValleyDaily.com. This is the story of a young woman whose name you may have heard before, Taylor Christensen. She is a Skyview High School senior, and she was recently the victim of a traumatic brain injury after a very serious car accident. The spotlight on her at CashValleyDaily.com, courtesy of our friends at the Cache School District, highlights the fact that she didn't let this slow her down a bit. Stuart Howell, a history teacher at Skyview High School, said Taylor Christensen is a delightful young woman who continues to suffer through traumatic brain injury recovery. Taylor's injury notwithstanding, she remains committed to very high levels of achievement because simply, Howell said, she chooses to succeed. Taylor said herself that she was a straight-A student before the car accident where she suffered the traumatic brain injury that was extremely debilitating for her. She's still recovering from that accident, but Taylor said after the accident, she went right back to school as soon as she could. At first with an aide and trying to figure everything out, she said, was difficult. Taylor returned to school with this aide and is now going through school on her own. Taylor said, I'm very surprised and proud of myself for being where I am. I pushed through, and I'm not failing my classes. Hal, the history teacher, along with Skyview High School counselor Lindy Agee, agreed. They said that they've never once heard Taylor complain throughout the recovery and her difficulty with her own classes. Agee said she's been working hard, and her recovery has not been at all easy. She's never complained to me about it and is always grateful for help. Hal said Taylor pushed through and exceeded expectations in U.S. History B courses and received an A at the end of that course. It's an inspiring story about this Cache Valley teen who, again, had every excuse to just put it all on hold and chose not to. Went back into the classroom and, despite difficulty, is actually excelling with her grades at Skyview High School as a senior. Full story on that again at CacheValleyDaily.com. I've linked to it on our Facebook page as well. Space news. NASA hoping third time's the charm for this upcoming Artemis 1 launch attempt. Two previous launch attempts were scrubbed due to fueling issues in one situation and a problem with the massive Space Launch System itself in another. But they hope the third time is the charm. It's poised for a Florida launch on the pad at NASA's huge, gigantic, massive, shows up on satellite from far away even, Space Launch System rocket pad. The countdown is commenced for a third try early Wednesday morning, or will commence. And this also happens as part of the 50 years since NASA astronauts last visited the moon. So this is a pretty monumental event. The space agency is hoping it can mark this 50-year anniversary this year with this launch of the Artemis system, then get this Artemis program up and running. It's a multi-phase program, by the way, that's aiming to actually, in the end, put humans back on the lunar surface as early as 2025. Hundreds losing their jobs at iFit, most of them right here in Utah. iFit, the company formerly known as Icon here in Cache Valley is how it's known best. Hundreds of iFit employees lost their jobs today as the Logan-based company announced a latest round of layoffs. They cited in the layoff message to employees the exercise boom during the pandemic that led the company to growing quite a bit as far as its workforce goes, and referred to the layoffs that were announced today at iFit as right-sizing the company, both absorbing some of the slowdown since the pandemic in the exercise industry, but also trimming the company a bit more than that even, total around 1,600 employees trimmed previous to this week's reduction. And the announcement today, another 20% of iFit's employees received a layoff notice today. Would take that number about down to 1,600. They'll be down to about 1,300 after the announcement today. The majority of those jobs, again, lost right here in Utah. December of 2021, iFit reported 2,500 global employees, down to 1,300 just under a year later. The spokesperson for iFit said that the staff reduction will support millions of members across the iFit Sweat platforms and position the company for long-term success. An employee of iFit said Monday that told the Salt Lake Tribune that the company handled this round of layoffs much better than the last rounds. Remember, iFit, then Icon, kind of in hot water for what was, well, basically a a very indirect, almost sneaky way of going about the layoffs last go-round. This time, according to Derek Schouten, a former employee of iFit's Logan office, said today's layoffs were handled much more directly and included a note to employees affected that was, Schouten said, very apologetic. And he said, I get it. It's a business decision that they needed to make. Full story on that I've linked to on our Facebook page. And final bit of news, more science news here. Zapping tiny metal drops with sound is creating flexible wires. Why is this a big deal? I've joked about it here on the show often, but this is step one towards not only more wearable electronics, but installable. I mean, inside your body electronics. Now, obviously, the medical applications of this are huge, but even the not so important applications of this are huge. I tell you, folks, this is the official first step in the route towards everything your cell phone does being on a little chip you can have installed in the back of your neck or something like that. I'm not saying it'll happen in our lifetime. I'm saying that it is now going to happen for sure. But how is just cool. These liquid metal droplets, just barely larger than microscopic, are zapped with ultrasound, which forces them to take shape, which allows for the construction of what scientists called, in technical terms, I'm sure, stretchy, bendy electronics. The technique was detailed in Science Magazine in their November 11th issue and adds a new approach, scientists said, to, quote, the toolbox for researchers developing circuitry for medical sensors that attach not only to the skin, but also under the skin. Researchers began drawing on stretchy sheets of plastic with lines of these ultrasound-guided microscopic droplets of metal, and were successful at actually creating a circuit with sound. It's pretty cool stuff. They hit the microspheres, as they're called, with this high-frequency sound wave, force them into a shape, and then once they cool, they harden into that shape, but remain very flexible, even at more than a 90-degree twist. Pretty cool stuff. I've linked to the sciencenews.org detailed and large word-filled article on this if you'd like to read it on our Facebook page. There are your calming headlines for the day. We'll be back with more of the latest news, including big news from Utah today. 86 Utah lawmakers and other elected officials endorsing Ron DeSantis in the upcoming presidential race. What this means, the subtext again, this is officially Utah lawmakers, elected officials from county commissioners up to the state senate, saying that after the results of the midterms became clear, it's time to move past Donald Trump. Expect this to be controversial. We'll talk about who signed from here in Cache Valley even, and who didn't on the other side, here on KVN News for the People.
Not sure what to do for Thanksgiving dinner? Does the thought of that mess turn you off? Then call the Beehive Pub and Grill. They have an amazing family-style Thanksgiving meal ready to go. Just order by Friday, November 18th by 5 p.m. Pick up on November 23rd between noon and 6. Heat and serve. That's it. A full Thanksgiving meal with all the normal fix-ins without the hassle. Prices will vary. Order for 2 or get meals for 6. Call for details. Beehive Pub and Grill, Logan.
Nothing compares to the warmth and feel that a wood stove provides. The 2-time Best of Northern Utah winning team says there's never been a better time to replace your old inefficient wood stove and install a new energy-efficient EPA-certified Vermont casting wood product in your home. The U.S. government is offering federal tax credits of 26% on your wood stove install. For Vermont casting units, that includes stoves, venting, and labor. Call or email Advanced Fireplace and Stove for a free in-home estimate. Call 435-752-7272 or go to advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
You do amazing things every day, and we're not just talking about your pregnancy. You do it all. So why risk letting COVID-19 stop you? COVID-19 vaccines are especially important during pregnancy. Take control of your health so you can keep showing up for the ones you love. Get the COVID-19 vaccine to protect yourself and your pregnancy. It's safe, proven, effective. You could say it's pretty amazing, just like you. Message brought to you by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Visit ACOG.org/COVID vaccine to learn more.
If you're feeling dizzy or off balance, you're not alone. 35% of adults over 40 in the U.S. have a problem with their inner ear, and many conditions go undiagnosed and untreated. But there's hope. For more information, call 800-837-8428 or visit liferebalanced.org and discover a life rebalanced. That's 800-837-8428 or liferebalanced.org. Sponsored by the Vestibular Disorders Association.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. As I mentioned during the relaxing news with smooth jazz, we'd be getting to this.
I listened to that. I just felt so much better. I just was like,
that's the hope.
Yeah,
the hope,
not keyed up.
The hope is if we start each show from now on, after seeing some of the literal freak out that was happening around the midterms, by people that I've always known to be otherwise quite calm, including a couple of state lawmakers that I've always thought were pretty level-headed. I thought, you know what, we're going to do our best here to lower the blood pressure. So it will do headlines with smooth jazz until either I get tired of it or we get enough complaints to stop.
Or making people fall asleep while driving.
I worry about that sometimes because I was driving back from Oregon once and I left late. So by the time I hit the Boise area, it was around midnight or closer even maybe to 1 in the morning. And I was going to drive straight through the night. I had to be home for the holidays the next morning. And so I'm driving along and I flipped over, and I've always been a fan of Coast to Coast. But I flipped over, and it just happened to be a Coast to Coast episode where they weren't talking about anything funny. They weren't doing their usual shtick. It was they had a guest who was talking about being centered and in the present in your own mind, which I thought was great advice. But he was talking about how to do this, but he was listing.
You got so centered that you just
he was
tired.
He was listing, and my brain has this reaction to listing that is, it's like you slip me a sedative. If you start two things, read the internet to me or a news story, someone reading, which made school so difficult for me. I don't know why teachers love to do this, but they would have everybody in the class take turns reading. And I'm sure there's some reason. It's more memorable. Maybe it would put me to sleep.
And so they call on you, All right, Jason.
Oh no, I could read if it was me reading. I'm fine. Okay. But when hearing another person read, I don't know why my brain just goes, well, nap time.
Yeah.
And same if a person's listing. If that list starts to go on too long, my brain just says, well, I'm going to do something else.
All right, number 3, blah, blah, blah.
And so this
4.
This coast-to-coast guest was listing, and I felt myself, I'm like, I hadn't felt tired. I'd had a full night's sleep, and I'm a responsible person. If I feel groggy, I'm going to pull over. The weather was warm. I could have slept in my car at a rest stop or even grabbed a hotel in Boise. And I thought about it for a second, and then I just changed.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do the rest of it. That's a little risky.
I just went away from coast to coast there long enough to get past that guest, and I parked right back up. Well,
there you go.
So, yeah, I worry. I hope our smooth jazz isn't actually having that effect, but hopefully it reduces the blood pressure a bit because, honestly, folks, we've got to calm down. Along those lines, I'm not sure that this was the goal. Calmness was the goal of this. I'm not sure that it will have an effect of calmness. It might have the opposite effect. But it was an interesting move by Utah elected officials in response to the midterm elections that came out today. This was emailed out at about 2:30 this afternoon by the Utah State Senate communications team. And it says, simply for immediate release, November 14th, 2022, Contacts on this were Senator Todd Weiler from the Bountiful area, Republican from Bountiful, and a really funny guy also, and Senator Dan McKay from Riverton, a very conservative lawmaker, the guy who sponsored what's known as the trigger bill for the abortion ban here in Utah, which was triggered by the Supreme Court decision, Dodds, back in June, but is currently in court as perhaps unconstitutional, waiting for the courts to weigh in on that. You have a more moderate Republican, former vice chair of the Utah Republican Party, Senator Todd Weiler, and a very conservative Republican, Senator Dan McKay, co-authoring the message on this, and then the signatures of 86 different elected Republicans in Utah. And I'll read in a minute here what the message actually says, but I'm gonna characterize this first accurately, because the message being sent was very clear. And the message from these 86 Republicans here in Utah seems to be, we feel that former President Donald Trump cost our party big in the midterms, both in a much more muted House majority than the environment was ripe for. To put this in the words of a very smart man at Real Clear Politics, if you don't follow Sean, you should, but Sean Trend. But he said this was an environment that Republicans should have excelled in, but because of poor quality candidates, they did not. And so the calculation here, the message behind this statement from 86 elected officials here in Utah today was that, basically, that Donald Trump cost them a more sizable House majority. I would guess they're gonna land with at least 10, maybe 12 seat majority. It could be as low as 5, though, depending on what happens in California, as those races are still being counted there. So that's not a big majority, and it creates problems for McCarthy or whoever ends up being the Speaker of the House, because that means, to get anything through the House that Republicans want and Democrats don't, they have to have everyone on board. So the Freedom Caucus, the very conservative right wing of the party, the moderates, the more liberal-leaning Republicans, you got to make them all happy to get a bill through. That's going to be difficult with if it ends up being a 5-seat majority. You can't lose anybody, or you got to pick off some Democrats to get anything through the House. In the Senate, Democrats have secured their majority. They've retained it, and it looks like they may actually grow that by 1 in the upcoming special election between current Senator Democrat Raphael Warnock and what I would say is a very embattled Republican nominee, former pro football star Herschel Walker, who has made one of the weirdest campaigns I've ever seen happen. Ever. But tribalism is powerful, so Walker could win. So now the exact words of the message today, that's my paraphrase, is that this is 86 elected officials here in Utah, including some from Cache Valley, we'll get to that in a bit, saying we feel that Trump cost us the election. The reason they might feel that way, all Trump nominees performed very poorly, or endorsees. Anyone Trump endorsed basically did not perform well. Excluding those he just kind of jumped on late that were already doing really well, to save his name, basically. And Stop the Steal or Big Lie candidates that were running basically entirely on this idea that the 2020 election was stolen. Not true. They all lost, except one. Of the 17 Stop the Steal candidates, 16 of them lost. So the message here, again, is that these are Republicans here in Utah, very red, conservative state. That's why it's coming from Utah. I guarantee this is coordinated with the RNC. Well, maybe not the RNC, but members of the RNC, because the RNC isn't going to put their name on it. And Utah Republicans can afford, even if they get some criticism they can afford to do it because it's Utah and they win election anyway. So who signed this message? Well, first off, here's what the message said. The message said, basically, in this email from Utah lawmakers, 86 of them at least, Our nation stands at a crossroads. We recognize the need for a strong leader to guide and direct our nation, someone with a proven track record, strong conservative foundation, and who understands the operations of state government. We need a leader who will strengthen and unify the nation. Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida, serves his country and state well and skillfully navigated the many challenges Florida faced during his first term. As elected officials in Utah, we support and call upon Governor DeSantis to form an exploratory committee for President of the United States in 2024. Most people react to this by saying, who cares? Why does anyone care what Utah lawmakers think? It matters because it is basically lawmakers and county council members, including some here in the Valley, we'll get to that, auditors and more, commissioners, basically saying to the nation, hey, we're the second most conservative state in the nation, and we are getting out ahead of this, saying Trump should not be the nominee in 2024. We feel he cost our party here in the midterms. That is a big deal. So who signed? Famous people like State Auditor John Dougall signed. Here in northern Utah, Senator Scott Sandell signed on to this message, endorsing DeSantis and basically trying to send the signal that Trump should not be the nominee in 2024. Senator Todd Weiler obviously signed. He wrote the message itself. Representative Dan Johnson here in Cache Valley signed. Representative Casey Snyder signed. And Cache County Councilmember Gina Worthen and Councilmember Dave Erickson signed. And Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield signed on to this message. Again, the message does not say Trump outright. It says we're urging Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, to form an exploratory committee to run for president. But coming out less than a week after the midterm results, in which, again, Republicans seem to have decided that Trump was the reason for their poor performance, or his candidates at least were, this is Utah Republicans sending the signal to other Republicans throughout the nation saying we're getting ahead of this one. We do not want Trump to be the nominee. We are sort of pre-endorsing Ron DeSantis for the Republican nominee in 2024, the presidential race. I did not see this coming. I think it's a smart move, but I did not see this coming. And the names on here, 86 elected officials, from members of the House to members of the state Senate to county council members throughout and commissioners throughout the state, including, again, Gina Worthen and Dave Erickson here in Cache Valley, Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield, Senator Scott Sandell. Yes, you'll notice Representative Mike Peterson missing from this list, but the other two, Johnson and Snyder, signed it. State Auditor John Dougall, who is basically a celebrity with Utah GOP delegates and moderate Republicans. This is a pretty big deal. I posted a link to the letter on our Facebook page. What do you think? Does it matter? Trump says he's got a big announcement coming next Tuesday, so we'll see how this takes shape. Maybe he's not even interested in running, but again, 86 members of the Utah House and Senate, county councils, and county commissioners throughout the state as well joining on to say they do not think Trump should be the nominee in 2024, that it should be Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Utah lawmakers urging DeSantis to form an exploratory committee, and they're doing this less than a week after the midterms played out. We'll be back after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:38. The news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. A section of Mendon Road, 600 South, will be closed today through Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The closure will be from 3200 West to the city of Mendon. Motorists are advised to use Valley View, State Route 30 as an alternate route. The closure is necessary for road crews to complete shoulder work along the road. During the closure, the road will only be accessible to emergency vehicles if necessary. The Mississippi auditor is demanding nearly $2 million from a private company for failing to have enough people on duty at a state prison it was operating. Auditor Shad White said Monday that Management and Training Corporation had nearly 12,000 unfilled mandatory shifts from 2017 to 2020 at a correctional facility in northern Mississippi. The company, Management Training Corporation, is based in Centerville, Utah. White says the company failed to tell the Mississippi Department of Corrections when Marshall County prison staffing fell below minimum levels required by a state contract. They said Monday they had paid vacancy penalties under a contract that was amended in December 2017 by the Mississippi Department of Corrections. Joel Embiid scored a career-high 59 points, had 11 rebounds and 8 assists to carry the Philadelphia 76ers to a 105-98 win over the Utah Jazz last night. Tonight, Utah State Aggie men's basketball back in action. They host Santa Clara in the Spectrum at 7 o'clock. Al Lewis will preview it with former Aggie great Jalen Moore, starting straight up 6 o'clock with game day tonight on KVNU. News time is 4:40.
You'll love the holiday specials and big selection when you shop at UNI Furniture. Got guests coming? How about their best-selling mattress, a Therapeutic Serene featuring a zone coil system, comfy stretch knit top, only $399 for the queen size. For Christmas, a TV? How about 50 different console choices from small to large, with or without fireplaces, and over 200 chairs on display, including the best in recliners. They offer free layaway and prices you'll love. A local standard when it comes to furniture. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, UNI Downtown Logan.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, low 10 to 15. Sunny, lower 30s on Tuesday. Sunny, mid-30s on Wednesday. It's been to 35 today. It's 32 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Work with their Cache Valley team to build a stronger, more durable, long-lasting structure for your needs. Visit northernsteelbuilding.com. Call 435-677-7300. And again, be advised, we reported this about a half hour ago, and may still be the case, where emergency crews had been on the scene of a substantial ruptured gas line, 1400 North, 800 East. Traffic was being detoured in the area while utility crews are making repairs. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Senior Branch Office Administrator Tony Smith bringing you the daily financial market report for November 14th. It's a fairly light week on the economic data calendar, shifting the focus to corporate profits as we round out the third quarter earnings season. The spotlight will be on consumers with big U.S. retailers like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Macy's, set to announce results this week. This will shed fresh light on two key trends: the health of consumer demands heading into the holiday shopping season, and the trend in prices, which will offer perspective on the path of inflation. More broadly, with more than 90% of S&P 500 companies having reported quarterly results, the corporate earnings story remains reasonably positive. Profits rose 4% versus the prior year, and sales grew more than 11%, reflecting the combination of rising prices and resilient demand. We think earning growth ahead will moderate as recessionary pressures mount, posing a potential catalyst for renewed market swings. However, we don't expect a sharp decline in profits. That would present a case for new market lows, as we think this year's pullback already priced in a weaker earning growth outlook. The Dow closed down 211 points at 33,537. The Nasdaq closed down 127 at 11,196. S&P closed down 35 points at 3,958. In stocks of local interest, Apple closed down $1.42 at 148.28. Nucor closed up $3.44 at 142.20. Zions Bank down $2.08 at 53.31. Delta Airlines was down 75 cents at 34.69. And Boeing was down $3.94 at $173.55. The price of crude oil was down $3.61 at $85.35, and the spot price of gold was up $6.80 at $1,776.20. This has been today's financial market report for November 14th, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Ted Karen, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice.
You might ask yourself, when is the best time to start saving for retirement? The answer is simple. It's today. An Edward Jones financial advisor is here to help. They will work with you to build a plan for your ideal retirement by identifying your unique goals and help keep you on track to achieve them. The sooner you get started, the better. Call one of the 7 Edward Jones locations in Cache Valley to schedule an appointment today. Making sense of investing. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, former President Donald Trump has said he could, perhaps, probably, be announcing something very big tonight, Clay. Plus,
we should have more finality in the House votes, even though this is dragging on for far too long. We hopefully will be able to celebrate one half of Congress back under red control. We'll discuss Tuesday edition.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Speaking of this, the Elton John. Well, we weren't just hearing Elton John there. A little
bit of Dua Lipa. How do you say your name?
Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa.
I didn't know this, but apparently Elton John has. He does. This must be kind of a trendy thing these days. Like David Letterman did it. There's someone else who has transitioned into this too. They used to be famous for something else. Elton John is on his what he's calling his final tour. He's not doing any more. I don't know if he's not doing any more live performances or not doing any more tours, but he still makes music and produces a lot more than he records these days. But now he has a podcast where he interviews famous people. I ran across it on Apple Podcasts just looking for random stuff. I haven't listened to it. I don't know if it's good, but anyway, there's some random trivia for you. A message to throw out here. I'd never. Did
he grow a big long beard like
Letterman did? No, but that would be funny. He should do that. Elton, if you're listening, he does occasionally. Please grow.
And he calls in once in a while.
Grow a David Letterman beard for your interview show, please. Even though it's a podcast, put pictures on the internet. I'd never thought of this. Cache County Executive David Zook mentioned this when he was last in studio a couple of weeks ago, talking about his campaign. He threw this out because it was an announcement that needed to be made. And I'd never thought of this aspect of it. But so if you were listening that day, you may have seen it at CacheValleyDaily.com. If not, I'll remind you here right now. Tomorrow, the gates close. The gates into a lot of these heavily trafficked these days mountain roads, they close tomorrow. That does include the road from Avon over to Liberty into the Huntsville area. Those gates will be closed. Left-hand fork in Blacksmith Fork Canyon. The gates further up, right-hand and Temple Fork areas will be closed. Now, there are some roads that aren't gated. It's still recommended if it's muddy and nasty out there. Don't get yourself on the news for a search and rescue. And don't tear everything up so no one can enjoy it next year. But there are, a lot of roads that if the snows aren't heavy, you can still access, get out into the outdoors, even into December a lot of times here in Utah. But these major roads that see a lot of traffic each summer will be closed. And I had never thought of this. I always knew that, Cache County Public Works, Utah Department of Public Safety, Utah Department of Wildlife and Natural Resources, they always make such a big deal out of this state. Now, it's clearly posted. If you've driven up one of these roads all summer long, you've seen the sign a million times, so much so that you've probably forgotten what the sign says. The sign tells you that these roads are closed from November 15th to April 15th. But I never really understood or even thought about the broad public service announcement push that goes on for about a month before these roads close. And today I got my answer. I was texting with a friend of the show who works at the Utah Department of Public Safety. And he just casually mentioned it. He said, "Hey, by the way, I was scheduling an interview for the future when they have an event coming up that they can't. It's embargoed right now. So I just said, when that embargo lifts, when you can talk about this, please come on the show that day." And then we were kind of chit chatting. I said, "How are things? Any exciting news?" there at DPS, and he said, please remind your listeners of that gate closure tomorrow. And I said, oh, yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago with County Executive David Zook. And he said, well, please remind them again because, and then I'd honestly never thought of this, and Bill, imagine being in this situation. The concern is that they'll lock people in some of these areas because obviously they can't guarantee they'll be able to get out there at like 6 a.m. to lock the gates at every gated location. They try to. I know they try to make this. They can't lock them before tomorrow. It's state law, and in some cases federal law plays in. But they also can't really for sure, in a lot of cases, say what time they're going to be there to lock them. Now, I know from friends I had who have gone out and as part of their job to do this for Natural Resources Department and others, they have sometimes gone out and actually driven the road. If it's for example, the route from Huntsville over to Avon, they would drive that route because they could see if anyone was out there. Because they, with not a lot of snow, they might have people out there camping. Even it'd be cold, but it happens. And so they would drive that route. They'd lock one gate, drive the route, make sure there was no one else up there because that's a more contained area, and then lock the gate on the other side. They can't do that in every area. So the big push to get word out on this. Is that there are certain gated roads where if they lock both ends, you are in trouble. You're locked in without a nice route out. In some cases, you could find a route out, but you'd have to trespass, dig up some stuff that should not be driven on, even run risk of damaging your vehicle. In some cases, though, some of those steeper canyons with gates, you would just be stuck. You'd have to walk out to the main road.
And there may not be cell service from deep up there.
Yeah, so you're going to have to walk out to the main road and stick your thumb out until someone goes by and then let them know, well, I didn't see the sign. I got locked in. And then what do you do? Well, of course, they'll come and open the gate and let you get your vehicle out. And believe me, it has happened. So I asked our friend at the Utah Department of Public Safety, how often does this actually happen? And he said statewide, it's at least once a year. But he said, I don't have exact statistics. But he says he does know a few years ago, they had an entire group of people, including youngsters, because it was a Boy Scout troop that had gone up and they'd spent the afternoon. They'd gone up in the morning before the gate was locked. They'd gone up before sunrise. And they'd gone up and spent the afternoon on this hillside doing activities and some other stuff. It was an unseasonably warm November. And when they came back down, all of them driving vans loaded with young kids, they came back down, the gate was locked. And so that's why they talk about this so much. I had never thought about that. Can you imagine that, Bill? You just, you go up, you don't see the sign, you haven't heard any of the PSAs.
You just go, la-dee-da.
Yeah, you just drive up, say, Left-Hand Fork in Blacksmith Ford Canyon is a good example. You just drive up there, you go through the gate, you're just tooling around. There's no snow up there right now. You could actually drive it in a passenger car, which you can't say every November, but you could right now. You're just out there tooling around, looking at stuff. It's beautiful. Some of the trees still have leaves on them. And then you turn around, you come back down later in the afternoon, and the gate is locked. And your choice is, you can maybe go through the stream to the left of the gate there if you were in a large vehicle. If you're in a passenger car, you don't have any choices. You're locked in. And that's not a huge walk, but it's going to be a pretty chilly and way too long walk.
Yeah, hopefully, you
this time of year.
Have your winter thermals.
Yeah. And then you're still going to be waiting there on the main road until someone comes by. Pass the word around that tomorrow morning, again, they try to do this super early, but where they can't make any guarantees, where they do have people, like I said with that story that Joe told me about, the Boy Scout groups growing up in their vans before sunrise, and then the gates getting locked at 7 a.m., So I do also know that there are some areas where they know no one's been up there or no one would be up there overnight, where they will actually lock these gates at 12:01 a.m. to avoid early morning travelers that might bypass or not see the sign. So but just pass the word around. Those gates locked tomorrow.
Don't be that person.
Yeah, if you happen to hit one of these gates and it is not locked, know that before the end of the day it's going to be. And as Bill said, don't be that person. We'll be back right after this.
USU Campus Store's annual holiday event is this Wednesday, November 16th from 8 a.m. to 7. The first 100 purchases will get a free ornament. Save big on Apple MacBooks and up to $68 off retail on 9th generation iPads. Shop all Aggie gear and holiday gift items, including blankets and kitchen goods with savings from 20 to 30% off. Make sure to grab a free hot chocolate and try our Aggie ice cream and handmade fudges, now 20% off. Don't miss the USU Campus Store's holiday sale this Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the Taggart Student Center or online at usucampusstore.com.
Happy holidays from Birch Creek Golf Course and Off-Premise Catering. For your company or business Christmas party, I invite you to choose Birch Creek's beautiful banquet room to host your Christmas party. Our banquet room can hold 150 guests with great parking and a beautiful view of Cache Valley. So when thinking company or business Christmas party, I invite you to choose Birch Creek and Off-Premise Catering. Call Birch Creek today at 563-6825 for information. And happy holidays from your friends at Birch Creek and Off-Premise Catering.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. My wife and I were laughing the other day because she read an article about things not to buy online. The first thing was prom dresses. Dresses advertised versus dresses delivered. Needless to say, what people thought they were getting is not what they got. It's much the same with mattresses. Almost always, buying a mattress online ends in buyers being let down. At My Mattress, we try to always exceed expectations. Lower prices than online and better beds. Only at My Mattress.
Come celebrate a white Christmas with Anderson's Seed and Garden. They are potentially giving away $40,000 in merchandise to the first 50 people who spend $500 or more on holiday and Christmas decor between now and November 24th. If it snows at least 4 inches on Christmas Day and you made a qualifying purchase, your purchase is free. But you only have until November 24th to qualify. Only at Anderson's Seed and Garden. Logan, see store for official rules.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Coming up in just a few minutes, Gary Saxton and guests joining us to talk about an effort to expand the Downtown Alliance that's been really effective here in Logan at bringing the downtown more into the spotlight and getting more focus on it from city and even county leaders, the state. Using that as a model, there's interest that has grown in Tremont and Brigham City. And so the plan is to start downtown alliances there and get people, obviously locals, but also people from surrounding areas to appreciate. And I got to say, maybe it's just because it's a little bit out of the way and but yet not so out of the way that it's a lengthy drive. You can do it in, 20 minutes, 15? I don't know. But downtown Tremont is kind of happening place, especially on weekends.
I haven't been downtown Tremont for a while.
It's really nice. I recently I had reason to be over there, and then some time to kill in between, appointments, and so I just pulled over, got out, and walked around a bit to kill 45 minutes. This was middle of the week, a work day. I was over there for work, and so yeah, there was actually quite a bit. It's quite a bit.
A little bit of hustle and bustle.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of new stuff. And if you're a coffee drinker, they have an amazing coffee shop that I think is in an old, it looks like it's in an old train car, but I think the building's just been designed to look like that. But yeah, it's a pretty happening place. Well, efforts to do the same thing with downtown Brigham City. Listener wanting to know if downtown Garland's getting involved. Not yet, but they still
have the pie dump.
That's still Garland. There. Downtown Garland is downtown Garland, and I still, every time I drive through that intersection right in downtown Garland, I cannot believe someone has not made a movie there. It just has like this movie set feel to it. And maybe it's a Stephen King movie, maybe it's a Steven Spielberg movie. I don't know, one of the two. You could do either one there in downtown Garland, but I'm happy to see the spotlight shining a little bit on some of these smaller towns here in northern Utah. And again, it's cool that they're sort of borrowing the model that has worked really well for Logan's downtown and the Downtown Alliance. So Gary Saxton and guests joining us in hour 2 of today's show to talk about expanding the reach and the spotlight on downtowns throughout northern Utah, not just Logan City. That's coming up next here on KVNU Logan.
News at the top and bottom of the hour. News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM at 102.1 FM. Proud